All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. If you are new here, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. My name is Billy Dees. Got a fantastic interview lined up for you today. With me on the line is Bill Thompson, another Bill. Bill, how are you?
Billy, it's a delight to be here talking with another fellow old-time radio broadcaster, podcaster. You're a better comedian than I am, but it's great to be here.
Well, let me tell the audience, you have the cred. There's not too often I get blown out of the water by somebody who has a long, distinguished history. I mean, you've probably interviewed every major star that, especially during like the 70s and 80s, right? I mean, you were just interviewing everybody. Go ahead.
Well, it's a niche that however you pronounce it, that I fell into, interviewing the authors of books. And that sounds a little boring, perhaps, but I realized after a very short time that everybody writes a book sooner or later, and most of them go on book tour. And I was able to line up interviews with basically one phone call to a publisher. They say, sure, what time do you want them? And all of a sudden into my studio walks Kirk Douglas. And I'm thinking, wow, that was easy.
Wow. Yeah. That's fantastic. And we're going to talk about his radio career. If you're interested in some of these old interviews, the podcast that Bill has is Now I've Heard Everything. And that's a podcast where he plays back. Now, when you play these back, do you give like a modern synopsis of how the interview happened and what it was about to give it some context? Is that how you present those?
Exactly. I don't presume necessarily that you've ever even heard of some of these people, because I know that some of my listeners are too young to remember, who maybe Bob Feller was, who I have on the podcast this week. He was a big baseball star in the 40s. Yes. And but it was a great interview. But that was in 1990. I did that interview. So the interview itself is 35 years old. So yeah, I put it in a little bit of context, let people know. Yeah, he was an all-star, had pitched 3 no-hitters, and so on and so forth. This is where we talked. Occasionally, I'll drop in if there's a relevant detail about. In this case, we talked on the 50th anniversary of his opening day no-hitter, and that type of thing. And yes, because again, even if you do remember who Bob Feller was, just being reminded of him brings back a lot of memories for people, and it's a very pleasant experience.
Yeah, I've looked through some of the names, and it's really amazing. So let's start with you and the beginning. That's always a good place to start. Where are you from?
Ottawa, Illinois. It's a little town about 90 miles to the southwest of Chicago on Route 80. It's about a 2-hour drive into Wrigley Field. I'm a Cubs fan.
Sure. You're not too far from me. I'm in Ohio, so yeah.
Cubs fan? Or no, you're probably a Reds fan. That's all right. Or are you a Guardians fan?
Yeah, the Guardians now, formerly the Cleveland Indians. Yes, I got to tell you, I'm not real baseball-y, if that's a word. But you got to keep in mind, I'm from Canton, Ohio, which is the home of the Professional Football Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And matter of fact, my old supervisor, he was he played with Brady in the Patriots. And everybody here has got an NFL connection. So, and up north, Cleveland Browns, down south, Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And my hometown, Paul Brown from this area. And, the NFL started here. So, yeah, but not to get you off the track, but yeah, baseball is kind of secondary. Even when LeBron played up in Cleveland, it was still football.
I guess everybody's got one sport they're passionate about, and the others are like, okay.
Yeah, well, this area, I mean, our culture here is beer and football. That's pretty much the extent of it.
Well, the town of Ottawa, Illinois, has no professional teams of any kind, but what it did have, when I was in high school, what it did have was 2 radio stations. One was an FM music station. That's where I got my start. The other was a daytime only AM station. And the FM station, I actually got my start as a disc jockey. And then I realized you need a personality to do that. So I became...
Well, I think you got a personality, but go ahead.
that came later. But I switched to the other station across town where I was a newscaster, because they were an automated station, no need for disc jockeys. So I started doing newscasting. I was 17 at the time. And I just built the career from there.
That's fantastic. Is that something you always wanted to do as a kid? A lot of kids have fantasies. Well, it's our age. People fantasize about being on the radio. Being on the radio isn't such a big thing anymore. But back in the day, there were so many big, stars.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, here again, back to my area, Cleveland. Alan Freed, all
Oh,
those people.
sure.
WMMS during the
Mm-hmm.
1970s. As far as I'm concerned, they put Springsteen on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, back then radio was the thing and a big stereo was the thing. Were you one of those guys? Did you have a big stereo in your house?
Not a big one, but we did have a stereo. But my music taste was so eclectic that I probably wouldn't have fit very easily into any radio station's format. But I did read a magazine article. I was still in high school and actually planning to go to law school someday. But I read a magazine article one night, and it was about the top paying jobs in America. And of course, doctor, lawyer, they're on the top. But like number 4 or 5 on the list was radio personality. Now, I don't think they meant
Really?
the ordinary run of the mill disc jockey. I think they meant Arthur Godfrey
Right.
and people of that era, because I don't know how old the magazine was. But I thought, radio, I got a couple of friends from high school who worked at one or the other of our 2 radio stations, and I
Right.
kind of lucked into it. And I've never looked back.
Yeah. Well, you have, I don't know how, sometimes when we record online, the essence of the voice doesn't come across 100% the way I'd like it, but you have a very soft mid-tone range, and that is excellent for voiceovers. I mean, it's kind of a misnomer that James Earl Jones, the voice down here, that's kind of a misnomer. That kind of a voice has its application, but if you look at like Morgan Freeman, or any of those people, they're very rich in midtones. And any audiophile will tell you the music lives in the midtones, not in the really highs or really lows. And you have that. And I think it's a very inviting voice. It's a very friendly voice. Yes. I kind of struggle with, when I'm up for voiceover jobs, people will sometimes tell me it's too masculine, it's too gritty, it's too rock and roll. I get that a lot. And you know what? You can't take that personally because it's just like, being a model or anything else, or some people are going to like the way you look and others not. But you have a very inviting voice. Is that something that you capitalized on when you realized you had it? Did you really like, okay, I got to really make this come out?
I got an early taste of it in school. From time to time, a teacher would remark, because they would have us read in front of the class, and every now and then a teacher would remark on, what a nice voice you have. I was the narrator in the Christmas play one year, that type of thing. But it really wasn't until I got to high school and I would join the speech and debate teams. And that's where it started to come out. And I actually wrote to, I think, Floyd Kalber, and who else? There was a couple of other major newscasters at the time, and said, do you have any advice for somebody who wants to get into radio? And they were very nice. They wrote back to me, said, do voice exercises and do it. And that was very nice of them. Very cool.
Yes, that was awesome. Well, as how long have you been retired now? You don't do radio anymore.
Well, asterisk next to that, I retired from my full-time job 7 years ago after I had colon cancer and spent some months recovering from that, and it kind of forced my hand. I was getting ready for retirement anyway. That kind of forced the hand, but I've never been off the air because ever since 2016 or so, I actually work with the National Association of Realtors. They have a weekly radio show and podcast called The Real Estate Today. And I do 4 little newscasts, little 2-minute newscasts in their 2-hour radio show with the latest real estate news. And I do that once a week from my home studio. And it's a wonderful little way to keep my hand in the thing.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I knew from your TikTok that you weren't working, full time anymore.
Right.
As far as colon cancer goes, anytime anybody mentions it, I always remind people to get checked.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you want to, tell a little bit about your thing. I'm due to get checked again. Every 10 years you got to go.
Yes.
And I hate it, but it's worth it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've told both my daughters, who are in their 40s now, I said, it's time. You gotta go and get tested. But the main thing, all of us have heard for many, many years, the warning signs of cancer. They always say one of the warning signs, any changes in bowel or bladder habits. And without going into any detail, I will say I had changes in my bowel and bladder habits and ignored them like a guy does until it was it wasn't too late, but it was at that point, the point where it was either do something about it now or you're not going to be here to do something about it now. And so, went in, and luckily surgery was very successful, but we did have some complications afterwards. That's why I was out of commission for a while. Had a round of chemo, round of radiation. Everything just turned out fine. I've been 7 years now cancer free. So,
well, that's fantastic. That's one of those things. We hear so much about diet and all the the preservatives that are in our food and everything. And I got my first check when I was 50. And since then, knowing what I know now, so many friends, so many people that I've known in their 40s, in their 30s have been diagnosed. Now, they used to tell you 50. Now, I think they've lowered it. I think they lowered it to 45. But quite frankly, I would tell anybody, an adult in their 30s or 40s, get checked. Because that's one you definitely want to catch early because it is very treatable. So, go ahead.
It is not only very treatable, but my doctor told me it is also one of the slower growing cancers. So you do have time. It's not like some cancers where you have to have surgery the same day, to save your life. You shouldn't wait. But if you do get diagnosed, later than you would have liked, it's still not necessarily, going to be the death sentence that it may have once been.
Yes, and despite cancer being scary, there's so many of them. Colon cancer is one, thyroid is another, skin is another, where they've done a lot of advancement. So get checked all the time, anytime you have a chance. Okay, one of the things that you moved on to. Now, there's two things we're going to cover here. We're going to cover TikTok, and we're also going to cover AI after 40, which I find fascinating. How did you get started with TikTok?
I got a new phone in the fall of 2019. And new phones come with pre-installed apps. So I was going through them to see which ones I could delete. There's games on there, and there's coupons and things like this. And there's one called TikTok. And I thought, okay, I figured maybe it's a word game or something. So I opened it up, and it wasn't a word game. It was these strange videos that I started, and it kind of threw me off for a while. And then I realized, well, this could be kind of fun. So I made got a couple of thousand views, which is nice. And then I had one or two that really struck that I had some fun with it. I kind of cut loose a little bit. And within 6 months or so, I'd had my first million view TikTok, which is really hard to do now because the algorithm has changed so many times. So I don't know if I can replicate that success today, but I thought that was kind of fun. And almost, probably within a year and a half or so, I had almost 250,000 followers. So,
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and that's the thing. You hear so much about, well, it's just kids on there and it's just silly stuff. But, I've noticed one of the trending things now that women are doing is this is 50 or this is 60, and they show themselves without the filters. And there's so many. And if you think they're just kids, you're wrong. I mean, there's obviously a lot of that on there. And there's a lot of nonsense on there, and there's a lot of silliness on there, just like there is anything else. But there's some really talented people there. I mean, there's some real talented people on there. What is the future of that? I understand it's been sold, and they're going to rebrand another type of app with and the structure for this app is going to get abandoned in about a year. Is that basically what's going to happen?
That's essentially what I've heard. And how true those reports are, it's still unclear because TikTok hasn't officially said much of anything. The Chinese government sure isn't talking. And so I'm not sure. It does sound, though, like we will be getting something resembling TikTok, perhaps as early as September, perhaps next March, somewhere in there. And apparently it's going to be a U.S. only kind of thing, which is distressing a lot of TikTokers who have international audiences.
Sure.
In fact, a big chunk of my audience comes from Norway.
Wow. That's interesting.
It looks like we'll have something new.
So your content is, how would you describe what you do on there? On TikTok? And what's your handle so people can find you?
And my handle is simply Heard Everything.
Okay.
It's because I originally set it up simply to promote my podcast.
Okay.
And if, as a matter of fact, parenthetically, I do also now have a second TikTok channel called Now I've Heard Everything, the whole title, in which I simply post promos for the podcast, and it has very small, promotional TikTok channels don't usually get much attention, but my main channel is Heard Everything, and I do exactly the opposite of what the TikTok gurus say. I don't have a niche, a specialty. I post pretty much whatever I want.
Well, you get lots of views, man. I'll tell you, that's fantastic. I've been on TikTok, and in all honesty, I haven't focused on it. I do take little clips of some of the shows we do here and put them on there, and sometimes I will do a dedicated TikTok, but I probably don't do as much as I should. But it's an interesting tool. And quite frankly, a lot of podcasters are on there and they're very successful with it. So, yes. All right. This is kind of why I brought you on, because I find this fascinating. AI is one of those topics that when people hear it, they sometimes go to science fiction. This is where the computers are going to take over and they're going to build machines that are going to wipe out humans. And then we go the other direction to where, that's something new again, and it's all BS and da-da-da. I think that the truth is somewhere in between. I think that with AI, especially repetitive tasks, AI is very helpful. For example, even in biology, I was speaking to a researcher not too long ago, and so much of what they do when they're analyzing results is repetitive. So it's nice to have AI do the repetitive, and then when something is out of whack, then the human comes in and analyzes it. So with that being said, before we get into AI specifically after 40, what is your feeling about AI?
It is a tool. And it is, that's all it is. It is a technology. It is simply something that will improve the way you do. For example, the old saying, 2 heads are better than 1. Well, what if you had 200 heads? What if you had 2,000 heads? What if you had 2 million heads? All of them pinpoint focused on what your question is, your quest for information, your problem, you're wondering about something. And you have literally 1 million minds, 2 million minds, all working on your. Well, I'll be perfectly candid with you. I'm building the YouTube channel AI After 40 with the help of AI. It's telling me, here's who your audience likely is, here's how you can approach that particular audience. Here's a sample script for a video if you want to use that. Incredible amounts of information that I would eventually have thought of it myself, but AI did it for me in 60 seconds.
Yes. There's so much good and bad to that. I think that, as far as an artist goes, I think that, let's say a musician, you could tell AI to analyze all the number one songs for the last 50 years and pick the most common bass lines, the most common hooks, the most common snaps, and engineer a song that was 3 or 4 minutes long that had all the best attributes of all the number one songs for the last 50 years. And would that be art? That's the thing.
There were those who asked the same question about computers in general a generation ago. Yes. If you have to use a computer to create it, you didn't really create that, now did you? Well, no, we now know that computers are just a tool, and AI is simply a tool, and it will be, like you said, for good or for evil. Somebody will use it to create something marvelous. Somebody else might not be so wise about their use of AI, but that's all it is. It's just a tool.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take it. I'll take that. I would agree. I think that for creatives, I don't think that creatives are going to go away.
No,
I think they could. The everyday ones might be threatened. It's just like with extras in movies now. You can take somebody and duplicate them. And I think that's a potential threat. But you have to adjust. It's like so many other things. We've adjusted to technology. You have to adjust. And one of the things that I heard that Cynthia, she's a co-host of mine. One of the things that she said that I thought was absolutely brilliant, and I haven't heard too many people say it, is that what we have to do too is we have to be, as human beings, more aware of our own intelligence, our own existence, and our own what's the word? I'm not sure what the words you use, but I thought it was brilliant. We have to be more in tune with our consciousness to understand what is real and what isn't. And people should develop those skills. I never thought about it that way, but it is true. I think that's a good point. Because a lot of people really are on automatic pilot, Bill. And I'm not saying I'm the smartest the smartest guy in the room, or the brightest bulb in the box, but there's a lot of people on that are on automatic pilot, man. I don't know if they know they're living or not. So,
well, that's the thing. You can't expect AI to do your entire job, and no matter what, large or small, it'll get you 60 or 80% of the way there, but it's still your project, your job, your task. And even if AI will write you a wonderful birthday note to somebody, it's still up to you to personalize it, give it your own little touch. I mean, AI is just a tool to help you get there.
Okay. Fair enough. AI after 40. Here's what I hear. This is what I hear a lot about AI after 40. And by the way, let me say this. It's a misnomer that just because you are quote unquote young, that you're good with technology. Okay. Because I've dealt with a lot of college graduates that don't know anything about how a computer works. And quite frankly, I think that's because everything is plug and play now. Yeah. You know, when computers first started to become mass marketed in the 1990s, just buying a printer was a major project. You had to know what operating system you had. You had to know how to download the drivers. And now everything is plug and play. And with the exception of the gamers and the enthusiasts, I think it's a misnomer to presume most people that I talk to in the workforce today don't know the difference between a hard drive memory or random access memory or anything.
That's right.
So with that being said, I think it's a misnomer. I think it's unfair to just say, oh, older people don't get it. I think that's unfair. And also, here's what I hear when it comes to like Chat GPT. If you're over 40, the only thing you're using AI for is to write a paragraph and say, okay, edit this. That's the only thing you're doing. I would agree. I use it for that purpose. I use it for other things. But what you are trying to get across to the over 40 group is there's a lot more that you can do than just clean up your emails, right?
Well, exactly. And the point that you just made about when we were learning computers, you had to learn everything about them. And it did seem very scary and very confusing and very foreign. And we're thinking, how am I ever going to learn all this? And somehow we learned all of it and we mastered it and we advanced. AI is the same thing. It's not difficult to learn. I'm in the process of learning myself. And that's partly my motivation for starting AI after 40, because I'm trying to expand my own knowledge of this. But it's amazing. And it is a lot easier to learn than you might think.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let's say someone over 40, and I would, as a general rule, I mean, stereotypes exist because there's some truth to them. It's probably a general rule. If you're of a certain age, as they say, if you're of a certain age, you're probably getting your news from cable news, and you're using computers to send emails, and that's about it. Okay. There's so much more you can do with this technology. AI after 40. You have the YouTube channel. What's one of the first things that you would want to get across to somebody who says, this AI thing? What would be one of the first things you'd want to introduce them to?
Well, for example, I had a Facebook friend just yesterday wrote to me and said, I've heard about AI. I know what it's for. It says, but what can you do with it? And at first I thought, well, what can't you do? But then I thought, that's a serious question. And there is a whole range of things. So the first thing that someone should consider is, what do I need done? Do I need help in writing a letter? Do I need help in organizing my household? Do I need help in just planning meals for the week? Do I need help in planning the rest of my career, where my career path is going to go? Or in the case of when I was creating AI after 40, do I need help creating a new YouTube channel? Whatever your need is, there's probably an AI agent that will help you do that and do it very fast.
Interesting. What's one of the ones that you lean on the most? What's one of the apps that you lean on the most?
I probably do Chat GPT, not necessarily because it's the OG of the AI apps, but it seems to be for one thing. It remembers me every time I log on. It not only remembers the last time we talked, but all the times that we've talked. So recently, I asked it a question that referenced something that we talked about maybe 2 months ago, and it picked up right where we left off. And it was because, again, machines don't forget.
Yes.
And it knows kind of what I like. It knows actually it intuits, or seems to. I don't want to ascribe human characteristics to it, but it seems to intuit who I really am and what I'm really interested in. And that's a powerful concept.
It's very powerful. I know that might even make some people nervous.
It does, yeah.
Well, yeah. What does this thing know about me? So that when people go to the website, or excuse me, it is a website, YouTube, AI After 40, and I know you're working on a dedicated website, and that's to come. But what's how many? Do you have a history of videos there? Is it like a one they should start with, or
I've got a handful. I've got a handful of videos up there now because, to be honest, we are still very much in our infancy. It's only been up for a matter of days, and what I'm actively searching for is, and I will invite any of your listeners and viewers to contribute any ideas you have, because what I'm hoping to build, what I want to build, this is my vision, to build a community of 40 plus adults who can all share with each other, all of us sharing ideas on, hey, I tried this and this worked. I tried this, it didn't give me such good results. But wait till you try this thing that I did. And as we start, because this is, again, how you and I learned computers back in the day. We sat around, we swapped stories of, I can do this with my disk drive. And, you wouldn't believe what I did with this thing over here. You start building ideas and then build on each other. And that's how community forms, that we can support each other.
Yes, that is all fantastic. Bill, you're an interesting guy. A couple places I want to send people. First of all, your TikTok. And here again, if you are of a certain age, as they often say, don't be dissuaded from TikTok because that's where all the kids are, because yes, that's there. But there's people of all ages with all kinds of different causes. I don't care. There's people on there. Some of the ones, I got to be honest with you, some of the heartbreaking ones are the ones who are battling chronic illness.
Oh, yeah.
They create these diaries on there, and you get caught, you get connected with these people and their emotional journeys. It's, yes, I mean, so there's that on there. There's people talking about news. There's lots of politics on there. There's people who have, been through a bad divorce. There's people that are going to tell you how to sell cars. I mean, it's just all over the gamut. So, if you enjoy, and they're short form videos. So Bill is on there, and it's the big one that you have. That's Heard Everything.
Heard Everything, okay. And then the channel that promotes my podcast is Now I've Heard Everything. And I guess this would be an opportune time to also mention that I did launch the other day a new TikTok channel for AI After 40. So that's a third way that you can find me on TikTok, AI After 40.
Absolutely fantastic. The next question would be the podcast itself. Are you on the major platforms? Where can people find Now I've Heard Everything?
Apple, Spotify, YouTube, because I do video versions. Obviously, with my old radio archive, there's no video to go with it, but I do use a variety of visuals and various effects that will keep you entertained. If all you can do is, if you just want to watch the video and listen to the interview. But yes, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, as we say, all major podcast platforms, and even some places where you can't find podcasts.
Well, I as being in the podcasting business, I can tell you that most podcasts that are on YouTube don't get watched. I mean, they don't get watched as in people sit down and watch them. People usually open them in a secondary browser and listen to them while they're at work or whatever. So, and that kind of, you're kind of from that school where the spoken word and audio was an art form. And so often now I think people just kind of regard it as a necessary evil. You have to have audio in your video, and then they just strip it off and slap it onto a podcast. To me, that's not, that's not like what Paul Harvey did. You
Right.
mentioned some of these other, Paul Harvey, his way of speaking was an art form, and his storytelling was an art form, and it was audio only. Watching video of that would have actually taken away from it. Do you agree with that?
Have you come across somebody on TikTok is repurposing his old rest of the story segments?
Oh, really?
And,
Yes.
and I listen to them whenever they pop up in my For You feed. I listen, and it's just, it takes me back, because you're right. The storytelling ability is astounding of that man.
Yes, I mean, people like Burl Ives was another one. This is going back. Those people just had this. Here again, it wasn't necessarily a high or a low voice, but it just was so rich, and the storytelling came out so well.
Gene Shepherd.
Yes, there's so many good ones. Lauren Green, a lot of people don't know that Lauren Green.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, well, we could talk about a lot, Bill. A lot of people wouldn't know what we're talking about. But we could certainly talk. Okay. AI After 40. There is a website coming. But in the meantime, do check out the TikTok. Bill, it's been great talking to you. We'll have to do another show one of these days and talk about maybe some of your like best interviews, some of the worst ones, and kind of give us that would be great if you would like to do that.
And I'll tell you about the personality that I may have accidentally killed.
Oh, really? Okay. Is that something you want to tell, or you want to save that one? Okay, we'll leave it as a teaser. Very good. Okay, talking to the wonderful Bill Thompson. Thank you so much for coming on the program. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Oh, Billy, it's been my pleasure. But you're terrific. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm probably not terrific. I'm 50-50 most of the time, but I'm Billy Dees. You can find the Billy Dees podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. We're on all of them. And we have about a 10-year history. In its current form, the Billy Dees podcast has about a 10-year history, so you can find us very easily. Kind of like my social media home, I'm going to say, is X, which for those of you who don't know is the former Twitter. At Billy Dees is on there. We also have a Billy Dees podcast page that's very, very small, but we talk about other things besides how great my latest episode is. We talk about how we market it, how we sometimes with new equipment that we've bought, new software that we're using. So a lot of nerds, I guess, who are really into podcasting do follow that page. Thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you again very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X at Billy Dees for updates about the program.
Do you listen to music or audiobooks on streaming devices such as Sonos or Amazon speakers? How about on your car sound system? If you use Spotify, Audible, or Amazon Music on any of these systems, you can also listen to the Billy Dees podcast the same way. Billy and his team go the extra mile to make sure our podcasts sound as good or better than anything on the radio. Listening to the Billy Dees podcast has never been easier. You literally just have to ask.